Oh, hey, welcome to my channel. My name is Rachel. I'm a homeschool mom of 4 boys, and I'm excited because I have a giveaway today. Really good book, and I think you're gonna like it. Hi, welcome. If you're new here, I am a homeschool mom. This is our 15th year homeschooling. I have graduated to, in this school year, I have a 10th grader and a 5th grader. But today I'm going to talk about high school. And as I mentioned, I do have a giveaway, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video. Today we're going to be talking about our core subjects: English, math, science, and social studies. But let me mention just a few things before I get started in the video that I want you to think about as I'm talking about these subjects and what's required. And that is that when we're homeschooling high schoolers, that they're human beings. They are just like us. They will make mistakes. They will not be perfect. So just keep that in mind as you are going through this. And also, you cannot teach them everything that you already know in this 4 years of homeschooling high school. But you can teach them the love of learning, encourage them in things that they love to learn about, and pray that they'll have a desire to learn the things that they need. And a third thing, and it's not absolutely necessary, but think about and maybe pray about doing outsource one of the core classes as an outsource. And I'll talk about that a little bit through this video and at the end. All right, let's get down to talking about our core subjects, and the first one is going to be English. Now, with English, some parents, they love to write, they love to read good literature, but teaching it to your child can be a whole nother subject matter. So I want to talk about that and what is actually required, not only for English, but we're going to talk about for these core subjects for the diploma for graduation. Okay, for English, one important thing to keep in mind, and for any of the subjects, is to remember, especially if you're going into high school, is that they're coming from 8th to 9th, not 8th to 12th grade. So we want to think about the workload and what we expect from them in any of these subjects. For 8th and 9th, you want to also think about filling in any gaps that you may be concerned about, whether it be maybe spelling, maybe some grammar concepts. And you might be thinking, well, we haven't even really worked on writing that much. Well, this will be a good time to really dive into that. I am going to go ahead and mention curriculum we have used, but you will have to look and see what works for you and your child, because it will be different. Just because I like it and it works for us doesn't mean it will work for anybody. But I have found that IEW has been very beneficial for our family, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But I have looked into other writing programs and been so tempted. There are some really good ones out there, so I just want you to keep that in mind. But I will explain what we have used and why. But before I mention that, let's talk about what is actually required for English. Okay, what is required for English? Let me go over just the credits and what is due for graduation, required for graduation. And that is going to be 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, 180 days. So that's 36 weeks, okay? So that's an hour a day. And English sort of has a lot of subcategories that you could put under it. It's going to be writing composition, grammar, could be spelling and vocabulary, literature. But to do all those in an hour a day would be a lot. And so maybe for us, the 9th grade year, we pretty much just did the writing composition, grammar, just sort of to keep up with it. This year, it's more of like 2 to 3 days a week, because he does have a pretty good solid foundation on that. And then last year we added in some books for him to read, and we really just printed off some free analysis for the books so we could just ask questions and go over them. And we did that over less than a handful of books. Now, you can go a lot deeper than that, especially if that is something you enjoy and your child enjoys and they love to read. My particular 10th grader this year, that is not his favorite thing, at least literature type of books. He does enjoy reading things he likes to read. You know, all kids are like that. So what we are doing this school year is IEW, and we are doing the first level of C. Look at me, I can never remember what it's called because they've changed the name, but I think it's level C1. But he is also doing grammar, like I said, 2 or 3 times a week. We will be starting, we haven't even started literature yet. We'll be actually starting this coming week. It's actually part of our Heart of Dakota curriculum. We are using a handful of their suggestions. Now, they have a full out English literature composition part of their curriculum, but we do not use that all because I feel like it's a lot, and I know it would take my son at least 2 hours to do all of that work every day. So I am just doing what I feel like is within reason for him. And now I will mention that he does do some lessons for like Sunday school, and he also helps on a bus route at our church and sometimes does the lesson for that. So he is writing other thoughts out, and that can all fall under English. So I do want him to be introduced to literature. In my last video, I asked everyone to put down what subject was the hardest to teach for them, and I would say that. Now, we love books. We don't have a problem reading the books. It's just analyzing them and doing that kind of work with them is another level. But Heart of Dakota, really, I like the way they're going to do this, and I'm excited about it. So I think it'll definitely give them a good introduction, and there's a few books that we're going to be working on throughout the year. So if you're interested in seeing how we are going to do that and what they use, hit that likes button and subscribe so you don't miss any, and maybe even that red bell so you don't miss any videos that come out as I go through the school year and record our homeschool journey. All right, so we're talking about English. Now I do want to mention like BJU, they actually have, and this is online, their literature program is just a half a semester. So like if you were actually going to use their English program, they, and I could be wrong about this, if anybody uses it, let us know, but I think they use the English throughout the first semester and then grammar the second semester. And I feel like if I think back to school, that's sort of how we did it. Or we did grammar, we did English and then literature, and then usually at the end of the school year we wrote a report. And that's another thing. My 2 oldest, and I'm probably going to do that with my 10th grader this school year, is they had to also write reports for different subjects like history or science. And that could sort of fall into both categories. So keep that in mind and keep in the requirements, because it can all be so overwhelming if you think about it all in one clump. You can spread it out. You can work on the writing yourself. You know, I could do IEW for one semester and then grab a literature program that I want to use for the next semester, and I could do it that way. So keep that in mind when you're talking about English. Okay, let's talk about math. And with English, you need the 4 credits, 1 for each year. And people talk about world literature, American literature, and British lit. And if you want to be specific on like your transcript when you write that out, you would have to be. For me, I just write English 1, English 2, English 3, and English 4. And then I keep a record for each of those subjects and what they use and what they did that school year. So if I needed it for a college, and from what I understand, some colleges require it and some don't. They want to see what was used or the record. So that's something to think about. But you just need the 4 credits. For math, I think each state is different. And for our state, we just need 3 credits. There may be some states that require 4. So that is why it is important to know what your state law is. And you can look that up yourself. We are in the state of Tennessee, and I've looked it up on the Tennessee site, but I also go through HSLDA, and also we are under an umbrella in our state, and they're all about the same. So just wanted to share that thought with you. So for math, you know, you cannot, if your child isn't ready for algebra, what do you do? My second oldest actually tried algebra. He did okay in pre-algebra, but it was just another level. So we actually backed him up, and for 9th grade, he did pre-algebra. We called it pre-algebra, but it was probably a mix, but that is what our umbrella suggested, and then he did algebra and geometry. Now my oldest actually did algebra 1 in 8th grade, so they are totally different. And keep that in mind with your children, with the expectations of them and what you think they should be doing and where they should be at. Really, they just should be at the next level. He did algebra 1 in 8th, and then geometry, algebra 2, and then he did some pre-cal, because he made some other decisions that it really wasn't necessary for him to continue. And I talked a little bit about that in my last video. But again, it is the same thing. You want an hour a day for 5 days a week for 180 days, which is 36 weeks. If you just keep that in mind, it gives you a little better idea. Now, if they're really struggling, and mine was struggling a little bit last year, and we ended up switching curriculum, and it was helpful, and it really lessened things, which was good. And he's actually doing algebra 2 this year, and he's probably spending no more than an hour on it. Now, we have used Saxon, we use Matthew C now. We did CTC math for a little bit, and that's what sort of helped him progress enough to be done with algebra. There's Shorman math, which is pretty advanced, I think. There's Mr. D math, and my second actually used that for his business math, and that's another option, but you need to make sure requirements for your state. Like my son did the 3 maths, but then did business math more for, it could have been elective, it could have fallen under math. So those are some thoughts on math. But again, if your son or daughter's really struggling, just really decide on where they're at. Maybe get someone else outside the house to evaluate them, and maybe even take some evaluation tests from different curriculum companies to see where they come out at. Also did use teaching textbooks 1 year, and I know that works for a lot of people. It did not work for my son, and my 10th grader now he had seen it and was not interested in that. So that is why we don't use it. And Matthew C has been working for my youngest absolutely fine. So that is, it's just different. Same with English. It's going to be different for each child. I'm just throwing out some ideas of what we have used. Okay, for science is sort of a broad subject too, because there's so many areas you could study. But for a high school requirement for our state, it is biology, and then chemistry or physics, and then the third one has to be just another science with a lab. So I was sort of up in the air about this, because these videos helped me study things out a lot further. And I've already graduated too, and I thought, what did I do? But I know my 2 oldest took biology, and they did the lab. And my second actually took biology, advanced biology, and they were both with Apologia, and he did the lab. Then he did the physics and chemistry. Used Chemistry 101, both of them. So I can't remember all the lab part with that, though. They were a little bit more independent on what they were doing. So let's talk about my third one. And I'm thinking about this more so this year, because my other 2 did do labs at a co-op, and this one is not doing a co-op. And that's sort of the outsource is what I'm talking about. Not, that opportunity. You need to decide if that's something you want for your family. Now my second just did 1 year of high school co-op, and that was enough. That was good for him. He got a writing class in and a science class in. What helped as an outsource was that he was answering to somebody else. And every child is different. He actually needed that. Especially for that science and that writing class, I really think it pushed him to do more than he would have done for me. Now there are online classes like Abeka and BJU both do their courses online, but if you're just doing it as they bring the answers to the teacher, then they're still not answering to anybody else. Now if you do it through them and they grade it, then that is their outsource. I guess that's what I'm meaning. So for science, my son did physical science last year with the Heart of Dakota and did the lab, but I know we did a lot of video lab too. This year, so far, we've only done video lab. And so I sort of was looking into that, and the book that I gave away last week, Liebens, talked about that a little bit, how broad the term lab for science is. So right now I'm just going to go with that, and we're going to do the best we can. I've actually found a website that is another homeschool. I think it's from Ace Paces. It's called Ace Connect, and I'll link it below the videos that we're going to start watching for biology. I do have a microscope that somebody let me borrow, and we may pull that out some more next semester as I'm looking ahead to see what he's going to be working on. It might be beneficial for that. So, how deep do they have to go in science? Again, it's 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, 180 days, and that's 36 weeks. So you need to decide on how in depth they need to be in it. You know, I want him to get a good education on that. He is reading a couple books. We are using the Biology 101, and I definitely feel like he needs to be reading. He's reading a book this semester and another book next semester, which I will mention in future videos. So, and he just has no desire to be touching that stuff. That's one reason we're not doing the lab. Now my next one, who's in 5th grade, he may want to do all that stuff himself. So, but we'll think about that in a few years from now. But I'm going to be doing the videos right now, and I think as long as he's following along, I did some print offs and he can follow along and write notes down, that type of thing. So that is my thoughts on science. And we, like I said, for high school, they've used Apologia, the 101 series. My son used Shorman chemistry for a little while, and it was very tough, very tough. He actually started working that school year, and he finished off with Chemistry 101. But if you have one that is really into science and chemistry, I think it was great. And especially if they want to go into a STEM program, the Shorman Sciences were good. I hope I explained all that well, and if you have any more comments about that or suggestions, please comment below. I'd love to hear. This is just from my own experience and from what I have studied out. Okay, the last thing is social sciences, which I don't know, I always just want to say history because the requirements for that are just a little bit different for our state, and I really think for a majority. Let me know if your state is different than this. Now, these are core subjects. I think I'm going to talk about everything else that is required in my next video and how that works. All right, so for history or social studies, you need one credit in world history or world geography, 1 credit in U.S. history, and then it's considered another credit, but it's really 2 half credits, which is government and economics. All right. So, and again, it's just 1 hour a day for 5 days a week for 180 days for 36 weeks. Depending on the curriculum, there's so many curriculums out there. For high school history, I mean, there's a Beck and BJU, there is Knotgrass. I know a lot of people use that, which will intertwine the literature and the writing. I have not used that. I have looked into it deeply. There is My Father's World. I know there's a lot more out there than even what I'm mentioning. So there is a lot of curriculum for high school histories and just narrowing that down. And really for me, it was just, somehow I researched out Heart of Dakota years ago and ended up liking the idea of the world geography. My oldest loved geography, and it was a really good year for us. So and the other boys did fine with it. But then world history was after that, and it wasn't a requirement. They had to do one or the other. So we always did some type of U.S. history. This year was the first year that I decided to go back to Heart of Dakota for U.S. history, and that's all we're doing is the U.S. history and government from that particular curriculum. He will get his 1 credit in U.S. history and half a credit in his government this school year. He will finish up with the history and half a credit of economics next year. So he actually will have 2 credits in U.S. history. I guess that's okay, but he'll also get his government and economics. But he really wanted to study, he had a desire to really have a good study of U.S. history. So that's why we're going to go ahead and do it this way, and I think it'll be good because this history, there's writing and taking notes, all kinds of good things that he should be learning anyways. I hope I gave enough information on all that to be helpful. If you have any questions, I'm going to say comment below, but I do want to talk about our giveaway, and I am excited about that. And if you missed last week's, I would at least check the book out. And I am going to mention Lee Binns again. Now this is my copy. I'll be sending out a new copy. Higher Calling. I pretty much almost finished this because I was like, I need to read this. And it really is good. Now it is Homeschooling High School for Harried Husbands. But I read reviews that said, even if you're not a husband, you should read this. And I told my husband I wanted to read this with him because it really is good and he'll enjoy the humor in it. But it really was good for me. It was, yeah, I almost got a little bit emotional reading some of it, but it really is encouraging and he really put good perspectives on keeping your kids at home and homeschooling them through the high school years as a dad. So it was good to hear it from a dad's point of view. So I'm excited about that book and that giveaway. So what do you need to do to get this book? Okay, so I really want to encourage you to like this video. And if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. And even if you're not interested in the giveaway, if this video has been helpful in any way, I'd really appreciate if you liked and subscribed. But if you want to be part of the giveaway, go ahead and comment below. And this week I want you to comment on what subject you do like or your student likes and what curriculum you're using for that subject. So more of a positive end, and that'll give some of us some ideas of the different curriculum that's being used. And I would love to hear what other people are using. So what you're going to do is you're going to like, subscribe, and comment below on what subject you enjoy or your student, and what curriculum you're using for that subject. So, all right, I hope this video was helpful and I appreciate you all watching. So next week I'll talk about the other subjects that are needed to get those credits for graduation and get that high school diploma. All right, I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will be linking, I forgot to mention, I will be posting the winner again on the community tab, and I'll also post it on my Instagram. I'd love for you to join me over there if you haven't. I'll link that below Friday at noon. I'll do that again, and then I will have the winner email me, and I'll link my email below. So, all right, thank you again. Hope you have a wonderful week.